I'll call this Monday, September 23rd meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. And please silence or shut off your mobile devices for the meeting. And if everybody can rise if they are able for the national anthem. Great. Madam Clerk, introduction of any addendum or delegation items?
There are none this evening.
Can I have a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda? Councillor Wells, Councillor Beauregard. Any questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Any disclosures of interest? Adoption of minutes. We have the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 22-19 held on September 9th, 2019. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Desmarais. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Determination of items requiring a separate discussion. I'll start on my left tonight. Councillor Bodner.
Item 1, Mr. Mayor.
Item 1. Anybody else? Yes?
Item 2?
Item 2.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
No.
Not 2, it was number 3.
Item 3. Okay. Nothing? Gary? Nothing? Councillor Desmarais, anything?
6 has to be.
Say 6. 6. Okay. Councillor What's nothing? Okay. So we have 6, 3, and 1. Okay. So we need approval of the items not requiring separate discussion. We have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Bruno, Councillor Wells. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. There are no presentations. There are no delegations. We'll get right into the mayor's report. So the Niagara region is holding 2 public information sessions on the future of specialized transit in Niagara. Discussion items include single point of contact for bookings, single application process, use of current and emerging technologies, use of taxi and ride-sharing services. Each session will include a 20-minute presentation followed by a discussion with a Q&A period after that. Regional staff will be there to answer your questions and hear your feedback. The 2 meetings are scheduled for Wednesday, September the 25th from 5 to 7 at the Holiday Inn St. Catharines, which is at 327 Ontario Street, and Thursday, September the 26th from 5 to 6 p.m. at the McBain Community Center at 7150 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls. If you or a loved one has an interest in the future of specialized transit in Niagara, I encourage you to attend one of these sessions. We currently have 530 volunteers registered with the City of Port Colborne who contributed over 9,000 hours of service in 2018. Last week, 250 of our volunteers attended an appreciation dinner at the Italian Hall. They were thanked for their contributions to helping us get things done here in Port Colborne, and special recognition was given to those celebrating 5 to 40 years of service. There are lots of photos up on our website, so take a look at that. It was a great evening. The theme was a Hawaiian theme. Councillor Kalalev came with a Hawaiian skirt and everything, so it was actually pretty good. It was a great evening, and a number of counselors attended, and it was a great time. As I said, we had a 40-year person with service, so that's pretty cool. Fire Prevention Week, Port Colborne Annual Fire Prevention Week open house is bigger and better this year with the addition of Touch a Truck next door at the Engineering and Operations Center. Mr. Lee, that's your department. On Saturday, October the 5th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Families are invited to the Port Colborne Fire Hall and Engineering and Operations Center to learn more about our fire prevention and city operations. Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services will be offering activities including fire escape routes, fire truck tours, target practice with a fire hose, and a live burn cell demonstration to ensure everyone is fire safe. Everybody's ready for that, Chief?
Thanks, Your Worship.
Good, thank you. Touch a Truck offers a change to show and teach the community about the equipment city staff use on a daily basis to serve the residents of Port Colborne. And we hope everyone that's able to join us will do so. It's a really good time there. Last Friday night, I attended our last bonfire at Nickel Beach. It was a rousing success. We had approximately about 100 people there. The first two were a little bit bigger. They were around 200 people each. But while attending, I stopped by one fire because I knew one of the couples there. They're volunteers in our community, and I know them through the Operatic Society. And the two people sitting with them, or the two couples with their kids, one was from Niagara Falls, one from Welland. Thought, what a great thing the city is doing for our community. It's a free event. We'd like to thank No Frills for the s'mores, the marshmallows, the chocolate, and the crackers, graham crackers for that. Oscom Steel for making our big fire pit, and our staff, Marina and Luke, who put that on, and they did a great job. And again, all 3 nights were perfect. No wind, the lake was like glass. It was just a beautiful, beautiful night for there. And we had 3 great entertainers, just playing acoustic guitar, and everything was enjoyed by everybody. Last week, the Niagara Health System issued a media release announcing the new South Niagara Hospital is listed by Infrastructure Ontario in their market update for projects in pre-procurement. It stated that they will start issuing requests for qualifications in the spring of 2021 and issuing a request for proposals in winter 2021 with a financial close in 2022. The next day, a media report came out stating that when the new hospital opens, the urgent care centers in Port Colborne and Fort Erie would be closed. In September of 2012, Dr. Kevin Smith, then supervisor of the Niagara Health System, submitted a report to the Honourable Deb Matthews, Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, on restructuring of the Niagara Health System. On page 37 of that report, which I have a copy of, under future siting options, the recommendation was, in addition to the St. Catharines site currently under construction, which is the new St. Catharines Hospital, the NHS should construct a new general acute care hospital in South Niagara, locate 2 freestanding urgent care centers in South Niagara, close the existing sites in Port Colborne, Fort Erie, Niagara Falls, and Welland, and relocate the nurse practitioner-led walk-in clinic and family health program to a suitable location with much lower operating costs than the existing site in Niagara Lake, with the closure of that site when complex continuing care can be consolidated to other sites. On page 41 of the report, it speaks to how they reached this decision. The interim recommendation by the NHS was the recommendation of the mayors of the southern tier with input from the regional chair be utilized to determine the location of the new hospital in the south, the location of a standalone new urgent care center, and population density and access should be the primary consideration in determining these locations. Local response to this recommendation was, it was unanimous that the mayors of the southern region, 6 in total, and regional chair stated 2 geographic areas being described as QEW and Lions Creek area and East Main Street and Highway 140 area to be considered as shortlisted locations for the proposed development of a South Niagara Hospital complex, conditional that urgent care centers continue to operate in Port Colborne and Fort Erie. I cannot stress enough that the southern mayors are unanimous in their support of a South Niagara Hospital being built. In the report, the final recommendation was, following significant deliberations, considering external expertise, and in keeping with alternatives approved by the mayors and regional chair, the final recommendation, subject to approval by the ministry, is to build the new facility in the QEW and Lions Creek area of Niagara. 2 additional freestanding UCCs, site and location to be determined, can be supported. Hours of operation should be in keeping with patient volume and other provincial practices. There have been no further discussions with the NHS on where the 2 freestanding urgent care centers will be located. We will continue to ensure that residents of Port Colborne have access to healthcare services in and close to our community. So the NHS, we will be meeting with them in the near future with regards to this. But the original report from September 2012, although it was reported in the paper that Fort Erie and Port Colborne would close, that's not what the report said, although that's what we were told. I was here in 2012. I do not remember them saying it closed. I do remember something more like the hospital may not be here, or that building, because it's no longer a full hospital. However, a UCC center would be here of some kind, to be determined where in Port Colborne and the size and all the things that it can do. So as we move forward, we will be bringing more information to council and have some council direction moving forward. But let us get more information out of the NHS. This was their release, not the province's release. So we will be contacting the Ministry of Health and find out what their comment is on this, because they've said, yes, we're going to build the new hospital in Niagara Falls. Now what about Fort Erie and Port Colborne? And also specifically Welland. Because we really don't know going forward what is going to happen there. Now they've said emergency is going to remain in Welland, which means if you have emergency, you have to keep critical care and intensive care. You have to have those. You can't move those departments out of a hospital when you have an emergency, as Donna would know. So, we've got to get a feel on what they're doing here. And yes, if they're going to get rid of 2 buildings that, quite frankly, are underutilized, that money can be put into a building that can be better utilized. Funding can be better to give us better health care here in Port Colborne. So, and I think back in 2012 when Vance was mayor, and I know when you were mayor, Ron, when this came up, we just didn't talk about Port Colborne's standing population. We talked about Port Colborne, Wainfleet, and in the summer, we go from, with Wainfleet and Port, around 20,000, with the summer residents here with Shirkston Shores and all the cottages, probably almost up to 40,000 people. It basically doubles in the summertime across the lake. So, we got to make sure that things coming out of this report that they keep talking about, that they're going to follow what their recommendations were that excuse me, that were printed in here. So we'll be bringing more information back to everybody and figure out how we're going to move forward from here. And before I end, I'd just like to wish my wife a happy birthday today. Today's her birthday. We had a quick dinner. I had to leave before the cake was served, which is probably a good thing. But Deb, if you're watching, happy birthday. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. The regional counselor is away. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Demery. Apologize.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to suggest that when you're looking at putting together something to deal with the urgent care situation, you might want to take a look back at our various video captures of this council meeting, because Suzanne Johnson stood in this chamber two times, but maybe even 3 times, and made some significant promises, and right now those are on the block, so that might be something to do.
Great, thank you. And I know with the committee, one of the committees that you chair, we will be involving a number of committees that we have today to get feedback from them also. So, okay. Anything else? So, Councillor Butters isn't here. She's away on vacation. Any questions with regards to the region? Okay, just one more. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor?
Thank you again. I do have a question with regards to the region. I would just like to suggest that either you or Councillor Butters, as regional representatives, would ask that anytime there are public information sessions scheduled, the region consider scheduling some in Port Colborne. We probably have the most difficult transit situations in the region, and we get the least amount of attention from the region. So it's very important to do that. If they really want our input, they have to come and get it.
Okay, thank you. I'll talk to Councillor Butters with regards to that. We'll do a team effort with the CIO of the region. On to Councillor's items. I do have a staff response. It'll be the mayor's response to one of your previous questions, but I'll start on this side for Councillor's items. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Your Worship. It was a quiet couple of weeks, but in that time, I'd like to thank Chris and his road staff for taking care of the visibility sight lines at Pleasant Beach Road and Sharkson Road. They cleared out the signs and they're easily visible now. You can see a flashlight. So thanks for the quick response on that. The second thing is that I have been meeting with Great Lake Holding Company, which is a developer. We've met with the planning department in regards to development of the east side corner of Elizabeth and Clowley Street with 8 townhouses. And we've progressed to a point where now we are meeting with Valet in regards to the site remediation that has to be done there, looking to get a clean site record going forward. So that's progressing very well. So those are my 2 items, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demeray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 items as well this evening. The first of which is about the human trafficking awareness training that was provided at the library last Wednesday, which I did attend, and our clerk also attended, which is good to see, as well as our fire department. I had hoped that there would be more city staff there, but I guess it wasn't arranged. But possibly the city would consider providing that type of training for the staff. It's really important. We took it. Some of it was quite alarming. It went beyond what we had seen in the original presentation at the Guildhall. This went far beyond that. It was about awareness and what possible interventions were there. Very, very difficult thing to digest for certain, but it was an important piece. It was attended by all the libraries in the region, sent representatives, so a lot of people are out there with more knowledge on the situation now. And if you look around town and you see signs put up on coroplast sheets that say you can make a lot of money by travel, this sort of thing, come and sell chocolate bars for us, that's human trafficking. Don't mistake it, call it, get it. We need to take down those signs as a city, and we need to follow up on that. There's no question on that. Those kids are grabbed and then they're gone. It's as simple as that, or young people in any case. So it's important. That was a really difficult session to attend, but it was very, very important. The second piece that I'd like to talk about, again, it's difficult, but it's our library at work trying to make a better community again. They're going to be hosting up their next, in their Let's Talk series. It will be Wednesday night, this Wednesday night, 6:30 till 8 at King Street in the atrium in the library. And this one's Let's Talk about youth suicide. It's about awareness and prevention. And we have a very high instance of that in this community. So again, it's something that it's going to touch every home in one way or another. If it's not one of yours, it's one of your friends, but it's there. So it's important to get that awareness level up there so that people know who to call, what to do, how to spot it, that sort of thing. You won't always be successful at it, but if you're successful in one, that's a major thing. So please try to attend if you can. That was everything I had.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Just a sec, Councillor Bruno. Mr. CAO, with regards to the training on human trafficking, we could include probably like senior staff, but some of our frontline people that are actually out there with Parks Department, some of our roads people, it's kind of the front line. If you could maybe touch base with the councillor and our head librarian with regards to that, I think that's training well worth doing. Thank you for bringing that up, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I have 3 items. One just came to me this evening through to Mr. Aquilina. I'm not sure if Ms. Hanson is in tomorrow, but I'd like to make an appointment with her to see a particular file that has been lingering for a while. So if you could let her know that. Secondly, I have a situation that perhaps Mr. Lee is aware of through Matt Pilon, who's been out to the site a couple times. I know the mayor has had a conversation one-on-one with a resident on George Street. And I know Councillor Danch has been contacted. Situation, Chris, is that there is a new build infill house there. I think you may be aware of it through Matt. The issue now is that whilst there's been a meeting of the minds on a plan amongst staff and the developer, and that seems to be going forward, it's the time lag between then, when this first arose, and now. On that particular site, while it's under construction, the amount of water flowing off that site flows into a rear yard. So, one of the comments I've received is that that can be a private matter between two private landowners, and the other is, can the city, either through the Drainage Acts or the building code, do anything about that? So I was going to speak to Mr. Rogers. He believes that there's a section in the Drainage Act that can at least begin with giving the builder notice, and perhaps we could have a conversation about that and if it applies. I'm not a drainage person, and I know you're not, but I'm not so sure if this section will or won't apply to this situation. But I'd like to bring it to the front burner only because I think infills in general can be a problem. We're encouraging infills. There will be a lot of infills. And so whilst they have a grading plan, whilst that might get corrected, in the interim, there seems to be no relief here with the contractor. And so the question really is if tomorrow we could perhaps get Matt on this. I'll bring to light that section of the Drainage Act and see if we can do something in the interim. I don't know if you have any response.
Chris?
Oh, and the complainant is here this evening as well.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bruno. I will touch base with staff in the morning, specifically on the topics that you mentioned and the Drainage Act in particular. If there is something that can assist in that process, by all means, we will try and implement that. But you're absolutely correct. It's in that stages before final construction is completed and all the grades have been met and deposits have been returned. That's where we have most of our complaints coming for this type of infill situation. So we'll have to work as staff to try and see if we can circumvent / work together with the different groups and make that happen interdepartmentally.
Thank you,
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Appreciate that. And finally, I believe it was last council meeting or the one before, Councillor Demeray had raised the question after we had gotten the report on the success of the new regional transit link. We recently had the manager of the Welland service who provides that for us at our transit committee meeting. And two questions came out of the discussion our CAO had and the presentation that he made here at council. One was regard to, with budget coming up, if we could look at what the costs are for bus shelters. And so the answer that's come back to me is that in the Welland case and in other cases, actually in this case it was Pattison, the advertiser actually footed the bill for it, and the municipality had to build the foundation and the slab. That apparently, though, is no longer happening, and at best it may be still able to be a joint contribution and project, but we're looking at between $6,000 and $10,000 per shelter. So that's a question as to if we want any and where. Fortunately, at our last transit meeting, there was only one public member there. Two of them had to be absent. So, and with budget coming up, we've decided to have our meeting on October 9th, which will give us another council meeting before Brendan brings the budget forward. So time to ponder that. The other issue that came up that night was Niagara Falls is doing a 3-month trial the last 3 months of this calendar year to provide free transit for seniors, in this case in Niagara Falls, over the age of 60. So they will come back with what their experience was, what the take-up was, what the lost revenue was, if there was an increase in transit ridership. Just as an aside, roughly we've gotten numbers that if we were to do that here on a full forgiveness of fee, in other words free, approximately 50% of the local route traffic is seniors. Probably doesn't account for 50% of the revenue because the senior rate is lower, but so you could be looking at 33 to 40% perhaps we would be foregoing. On the link, that dilutes that number to 25% overall that we would be foregoing. So I think it's appropriate for council to perhaps wait for the Niagara Falls study. I think we will have also, because of the link, the region backdated payments that we were paying for on the link. And so as of that meeting, I believe there was something like $26,000 that will be coming back to the city. So that's before we enter budget deliberations or see if we're going to add money to transit. But that number is still a bit fluid, and there may be more, there may be slightly less, but I think we'll have a better idea going forward. But I think for now, we could at least look at whether we want to put a placeholder in the 2020 budget in those deliberations. But I'd like to get more input from the public, members of council, and certainly the transit committee. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Counselor, so the 26,000, that is, maybe through you to Brenda, is that coming prior to the end of the year? Do you know?
Through you to answer your question, that would be what the region has calculated as a result of the Port Colborne link being uploaded. So their feeling is that we will have approximately $26,000 left over in that budget line to move to reserve for future capital or enhancements in any way the council feels is fit.
Because suggest maybe that we take the 26, throw it in a reserve, because if we're going to wait for Niagara Falls' pilot, it could be middle of next year, but if there's a pot of money to carry us through the majority of the year, then at least until next budget, we may be able to do that, depending on what the costs are. And again, you're going to have to bring those costs back, correct? So, okay, good. Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, Counselor. Any other questions of the Counselor on that one? No? Is that it? You're set? Okay. Counselor? 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 Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Few items tonight. First one, Centennial Park, and I guess that would go to Ashley. There's no handicap parking signs in the parking lot. And while that may not seem like a big deal, I happen to be at an event there, and I use handicap parking when available. And I was quite a ways down the queue. Now, they could have been taken up, which is quite fine. Other people need it too, but there isn't any. And I think there's a perfect spot to put at least 2 right behind those stones immediately after you enter that park. So I wonder if staff could look at that, and because it's our park, we wouldn't really need a report coming back or anything. I'm asking a question here. I think we don't need anything. It's not like on a street or something like that, but I'm just thinking there's Remembrance Day services coming up there too, so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. I'll follow up with staff tomorrow to investigate the installation of accessible parking spots at Centennial Park, and I will also coordinate with the Bylaw Enforcement Office to confirm whether or not we need to report back to council. Okay,
thank you.
You may need a report though, Ron, because of the findings point of it. I think it may have to be written on the fee if you get caught parking there without the proper tag.
Oh, I see, add that to the list of.
Yeah, it might be just a change in the current bylaw to add those 2 spots, so.
Okay.
I think it'd be done pretty quickly though.
Fair enough. And the next one is Remembrance Day services that may occur at the park. They have in past years. And I know that traditionally staff have done a cleanup the day before. I wonder if they might also rake the area. There's could be, I don't know, 70 people there on if it's a nice day or whatever. Many seniors, and because we're on an uneven surface there, and there's a heck of a lot of branches come out of those trees, and even a small branch can be problematic. I know one year they cleaned up, but they didn't really get all the branches, so that could be looked at. And also there's the continual construction going on. Right, and the entrance is right behind the cenotaph where the service will occur. That's construction for the new homes on the other side. And I know the last time that they stopped construction, even though this will happen is it a Saturday this year for, remember, anyways, on that day, I wonder if staff could contact the owners and just ask if they would suspend, work during the service time?
Monday. It's a Monday.
Monday, okay, Monday, sorry. And that's it on the park. Next item?
Well, just before we move on,
Sure.
Ashley, do you have any comments for the counselor?
No, except, simply to say that I'll follow up with staff to ensure that the park is prepared and ready for the Remembrance Day ceremony, as well as ensuring that we'll follow up with the contractor as well to suspend construction during that period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, counselor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO or Dan, is there any progress on the Corey report, the peer review? Or where are we at with that, or have we started it, or whoever could answer that one?
CAO?
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Bodnar, in terms of the peer review that council directed staff to have undertaken, we are awarding that job as an RFP, so any company can bid rather than pre-selecting contractors or just getting 3 quotes. It'll be a wide open RFP that's posted on the city's website. There will be qualifications that are required, such as expertise in certain subjects and so on. And then the successful bidder will be selected using a scoring matrix. So it won't just be price, or it won't just be, where they're located, for example, as a bidder. I was told recently that engineering staff is preparing the RFP. They prepare most of our RFPs that go out, and it is virtually ready to be issued. We are, however, the report itself isn't written yet, and I can't speak to how fast the report will be before, so the process that we're gonna follow is that the Director of Planning and his staff are gonna prepare a final report in draft form that's going to come to council, that's going to include all of the information that the city has before it. But before that's presented to the clerk's office for adding to a council meeting, it's going to be given to the consultant that's selected to do the peer review. They will comment on that report and send it back to the city along with their comments, and that will lift the draft designation off of the report, and it will come forward to council. So I can't speak to where that planning staff report is in the planning process, and maybe the director can fill us in on that.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you and to Councillor Bodnar and all of council, I am still working and waiting for the comments to come back in from the province. There's different agencies that need to provide comments, and until that time, I'm kind of in abeyance to prepare the report.
Okay. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm in no way trying to put any speed on this. It's going to take what it takes, do it right, and we'll get, so it was just, people are asking where is it in the grand scheme of things, so that's what I really wanted to hear. And I don't think there's any time frame or rushing to on this one, although if it's in the works, it'll just come forward. Mr. Mayor, another question through you to, I think it's going to be Ashley and Chris will get caught up in this also. So we have an ongoing issue on roof repairs to the Sherkson Community Center and the Julia Yeager Community Center, better known as the Bethel School. That's what everybody calls it. So last term of council, I believe, I'm sure it was last term of council, we put money in the budget for those roof repairs. And I think at a meeting in the spring, staff had suggested to the Sherkson group that it may be done in May. And it is now September. I'm familiar with the Sherkson one, not so familiar with the Bethel one, other than talking to the committee there. And I don't think the Bethel one is actually leaking, although there's shingles missing on the roof. And they're worried that they've done work on a ceiling in the upper room, all done and everything, and they don't want it to leak and then have to redo that whole ceiling area. And at the Shirkson one, there's a lot of rentals that are booked through the holiday season. And, and you can correct me at the end if I'm offside on any of these, but I think I kind of got it figured out. And this will be to Chris. We had staff out there, I think last week, with a roofer that actually got up inside to inspect and see if there was any leaks they could see. They discovered some pooling water on an old flat roof. And so they're going to come back and caulk part of that. But I guess my question is, why didn't that staff person have the executive or some people that actually have seen the leaks on site to be able to show where these leaks have happened, albeit random in some cases? So first I'd like kind of that question answered, or is that not done?
Chris, you going to start with this one?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bodnar. You're correct that facilities staff was on site at Shirkston. There was a number of locations that had been indicated to them where the leaks were occurring. They then investigated further and went up into the attic and looked at the crawl space. What they found is that where the leaks were occurring down below wasn't necessarily where the leaks were in the actual roof membrane above. Because of the flat roof, it was being stored and then obviously running to areas where there was other issues. I know they've initiated some repairs with the roofing contractor that was called on site and they did the investigation with, and I would hope that those would be done in very short order. Those would be remedial repairs.
Counselor?
So are we sure they know where the leaks are? Like, is that,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. The roofing company that came out and was in the attic with staff were fairly certain that they've located where the leaking was coming from. And then once they would eliminate those leaks from above, then the areas down below in the flat old roof membrane would be non-consequential because there wouldn't be any more water getting into the roofing area known as the attic.
okay, because they've spent some considerable money on a nice display case for historical documents and memorabilia that's been donated. They don't want to put in there because that's where one of the leaks were coming down, albeit it depending on which way the wind was blowing. You know, it's one of those weird ones where it just, there's a hole, there's a leak, easy peasy. This thing happens whenever. And then there was another one where, because they have a craft group there, so their yarn and material got wet. They had to move it. They will not put it back in those cupboards. So I just kind of want to be sure that the roofer knows where those leaks were coming from. So if that's the case, then I'm okay on that. But so we can be assured that's in the process because the money's in the budget. So staff doesn't have to redirect those two community centers getting their roofs repaired. I'd like to hear a yes on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. The roofer will be doing, is already, from my understanding, has already implemented some of the things, but he is going to be finalizing the roof repairs. There's also some fascia and flashing stuff that staff was addressing. And there was also an issue with around one of the windows, my understanding. So that was being addressed by internal staff as well as the actual roofing contractor coming in and doing the roof repairs. And yes, those monies are still in the budget to cover any of those costs that are happening currently.
Go ahead, Counselor.
On that same line, Ashley, can you confirm that we have received, some of us have received a letter from the Bethel Community Center? Are you and Nicole or meeting with that group then? Is that going to be set up and going to happen?
Ashley.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. Yes, staff are also in receipt of the letter, and certainly we recognize the importance of getting these repairs complete. We are in the process now of coordinating with facility staff under Chris's department in order to have a meeting with them to have an on-site inspection and take a look at what repairs need to be undertaken, and certainly to get that done as soon as possible.
Okay. So just on a general. Councilor Bodnar, could you turn your microphone on, please? I could. Okay. Sorry. So just generally, so this was directed by council in the last term. Money was put aside for whatever reason. We haven't got to it yet. That seems like a long time. Is there a way that if something like this is delayed, that, I'll say you, but any staff could come back to council and give us kind of an update as to why and things? You know, we think it's taken care of, and there could be good reasons why it hasn't got there, but it sure does seem to the committee members that are volunteers putting a lot of time and effort in that they're just flapping in the wind out there and nobody really cares. So, you know, I know that's not the case, but it sure seems like that. So if this would happen again, could we initiate some way that staff comes back, whether it's this or something else, and just says, we're working on it, these are the reasons, we haven't got there yet? It just would seem to be the proper thing to do with everybody involved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Counselor. Comments, staff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar, you're correct. This was monies were set aside by council during the last term. There have been some changes with regard to staff, and that's certainly not an excuse at all. But I can absolutely appreciate the need for a status update when projects are delayed. And I think between engineering and operations and our department over in community and economic development, we can make sure that an update is provided to council so that you are informed if ever there is a delay in the future.
Okay. All right. Staff responses, are there any? Fire Chief?
Thank you, Worship. I've got a couple things. Thank you again for your comments with regard to the open house coming October the 5th. Appreciate it. I know Amber does as well. She's been doing some work with regards to the Touch a Talk program, which has been pushed out through the CIO's office to show leadership within the corporation. Just a quick update to council. The recruits, we've got 6 volunteer recruits that are about halfway through the process. Some of their training is taking place here, as well as an outside agency is also doing training to get them up and running as quickly as possible. They should be going to calls sometime early October and becoming full-fledged volunteers as of January 1st. The other thing I would like to mention, over the last couple of years, through council support and donations to the community, we've been able to provide free smoke and carbon monoxide alarms during our fire prevention month, which is the month of October. So we're going to continue with that, and what that entails is that people want their homes inspected. We'll come and do the inspections. We'll come and install smoke and carbon monoxide alarms as needed, whether they be too old or whether they be incorrectly installed or not installed at all. Anybody who asked us to come and do an inspection, if they are found not to be in compliance, will not be charged. Those that are caught otherwise will be charged. So we would appreciate anybody who has interest to contact our offices, either through City Hall or directly at 905-834-4512 in the month of October, and we'll come and do an inspection of your home and make sure it's safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Sure. Mr. CAO.
Through your worship, as an update to council, subsequent to the recent staff report and bylaw that was on the agenda with respect to shopping carts being abandoned throughout the municipality, one of the, I guess, conditions in that report is that staff would approach all of the different vendors who offer shopping carts in their establishments and talk to them about the bylaw before it sort of went live with enforcement. I can report that proactively 2 store owners reached out to us in advance of us making those connections, specifically Sobeys and Food Basics. A meeting was held between staff and those managers. They recognize that there is an issue going on, a little bit of frustration about the fact that it is beyond their control, that it's actually a criminal activity that's taking the carts off of their property, which we did recognize, but both vendors presented a shopping cart management plan to staff that on the surface looks like it'll be very effective, and are taking a proactive step in making sure that they are good corporate citizens, I guess, of Port Colborne, for lack of a better term. And we do continue, so that's great that that progress has already been made, and we do plan on taking the next step of reaching out to the rest of the businesses in the city that do have shopping carts available for their customers.
Good, thank you. Staff? Ashley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to take the opportunity to provide a brief update with regard to the completion of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Unfortunately, what I can advise is that there has been some delay with regard to its completion and subsequent presentation to council. The reason for the delay is that after a rather lengthy public consultation process, we have continued to receive information and input from the public with regard to what it is they would like to see included in the plan. So with the interest in mind of ensuring that our public consultation has been fulsome and appropriately responds to the community's needs, we have allowed those comments to continue. So as a result, we have a draft in terms of recommendations that staff are reviewing at the present time. However, there will be some further comments from the public received by the consultants in early October. After that, I'm quite hopeful that I'll be able to get a draft in front of council for review, hopefully sometime in October. So I apologize for the delay. We are still working diligently on it, and I hope that that provides you with a little bit of a, well, it was a much needed update, so I apologize that you haven't seen it before council yet.
Good, thank you. Counselor?
Your Worship, good to hear that. What I'd like to know through you to Ashley is, that's a tight time frame then with budget right upon us. And so I don't know if, whilst the report might not be finished, that there's items that are in there that are long-standing and things that have been contemplated for a while. Really what I'm driving at is, will some of the issues out of the report that maybe don't need to be debated, or are we going to debate them rather quickly so that they won't have to wait till 2/21?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, you've hit the nail on the head. It's presented a bit of a challenge for staff because we were hoping that the Parks and Recreation Master Plan would provide staff with some guidance with regard to budget requests coming forward to council. So recognizing that budget process is upon us quite shortly, we will be identifying items in there that are going to be coming forward to council as part of the master plan. And this is something that I've mentioned to the treasurer as well, that we are going to try and identify those things to bring them forward proactively rather than waiting for the adoption of the master plan and then another year before those items are presented at budget.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Counselor. Dan, do you have any? No. Brenda? No. Chris? Nothing? Okay. Through some asks by councillors, Councillor Bruno and it was Councillor Kalala with regards to policing. 2 Fridays ago, I met with the Chief of Police here in Port Colborne. He was down, we're in support of Aaron Gross doing the Cops for Cancer ride, the 500-kilometer ride. So at the same time, with our staff sergeant here in Port Colborne, Rob LaPlante, we met at the Market Square and had a great conversation. Then we did a walkabout in the market area and spoke about areas which we need some improvement on, and some other issues with regards to the community. And then I also met privately in my office with Sergeant Aaron Gross and Rob LaPlante with regards to the issues that councillors around the table have brought up. So please keep an ear out with your constituents. They should be seeing a little bit more proactive approach in certain areas. And I know with regards to Barrack Road, Chris and I had a conversation with regards to going forward with signage along Highway 58 in Barrack. I also brought that issue up to the region in their departments that use that road where they should be using Stonebridge. So I brought that up at our last council meeting, at Public Works with regards to that. So they are moving forward. Like I've said before, we're not going to tell everybody what we're going to do because we don't want them to know what we're going to do. We want to catch them in the act. So, but there will be a lot more proactive policing in those areas moving forward. So, but if anything else comes forward, please bring those to my office, either through myself or through Nancy, because I do meet on a regular basis with our staff sergeant. Okay? Any further questions or anything? Nope. Thank you. Okay, items. Item 1, Councillor Bodnar. It's all right.
Community and Economic Development Department, Parks and Rec Division, Report 2019-145, subject, 9th Annual Downtown Harvest Festival.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Kalala. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff. Ashley, is that your gig again? Okay. So I read through this, and maybe I missed it, and maybe it's in there, or maybe it's just assumed. But is City Hall going to be open for that with the washrooms and everything, or not?
Ashley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff were in contact with the event organizer and identified the need for access to public washroom facilities. The recommendation in the report, or the report, does not outline that City Hall will be open, but rather arrangements have been made for public access to the Guild Hall, as well as the provision of portable washroom facilities during the event.
Okay.
It was staff's understanding, in consultation with the event organizer, that that would be sufficient. However, naturally, if council would prefer to provide some direction to staff to have us access to City Hall, then we can certainly make those arrangements.
Well, what I didn't see also then is that what is going to be open or out there, is it handicapped accessible, or is at least a percentage of them handicapped accessible?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as part of our event organizing function, it is part of our responsibility to ensure that, yes, there are accessible washroom facilities. However, I can and will follow up with the event coordinator to ensure that is in fact the case, and I'd be happy to follow up with council to confirm same as soon as I've spoken to him.
Okay, good.
Okay, Councillor?
Yep.
Sorry.
Through your worship to Councillor Bodnar, I did talk to the mayor about this in our pre-council meeting. We were going over the different staff reports, and the idea was raised of making sure that there's signs that direct attendees towards the Guild Hall so that it's publicly known. And I was going to speak to our director about that and make sure that we have communication with the BIA about making sure that the signs are that the washrooms are well signed, so people know that there is that indoor facility available this year. So that's one of the things that we'll be doing too.
Okay, Councillor? Okay, any other questions on this report? Councillor Kalala.
The Guild Hall does have accessible washrooms, so I think that will hopefully be good. Actually, I'm not sure, you probably knew that already anyway, but for Councillor Bodnar, I think that they had looked at that. They do have to go up I know what you're saying, it's up and around. I'm not sure about the portables, but I did, when I was speaking with Mary Lou today, I know that they were looking at the ones at the Guild Hall as being accessible.
Okay. Councillor Beauregard?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Grigg. Is it common for us to waive all our fees for these type of events? Especially, I guess it's been on for 9 years now, am I correct in that? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Beauregard. Traditionally, yes, council has provided approval to waive the fees in order to support hosting a third-party event and partnering with the Downtown BIA, which is also associated with the city. So this is undertaken, though, at the request of the event organizer. And it certainly isn't something that our staff generally bring forward as a recommendation. Certainly we'd like to move towards cost recovery, but in this case, yes, it's traditionally happened this way.
Okay.
Counselor?
I'm just thinking.
Okay. Any other questions? No other questions? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Ashley. Item 3, Councillor Clayla.
Corporate Services Department, Finance Division, Report 219-147, Subject 220, Budget Timeline and Guidance. I've actually had...
Seconder for that, Councillor Wells, Councillor Clayla.
I've actually had most of my question answered already, just from the discussion that's going on. Basically, I just wanted to ask, would we be seeing some type of an audit showing us the things that were still outstanding, as Councillor Bodner had requested, and I'm satisfied that, yes, we will see all of that.
Okay, Brenda, anything to add? No?
Nope,
You all set?
gonna try.
First big budget for you.
Yep.
Good stuff. So, good. Okay, any other questions on this, item 3? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Item 6, Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Region of Niagara Municipal Representation on Greater Niagara Circle Route Committee.
I got a seconder for that. Councillor Bruno, Councillor Desmarais. Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
We'll take your name.
Okay, so I will volunteer to do this.
Thank you.
I kind of got voluntold, but anyway, I'll volunteer.
So the Councillor Angie Desmarais be appointed as the City of Port Colborne's representative on the Greater Niagara Circle Route Committee. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I didn't want any questions. We just want to get you in there. Great. Any notices of motion? Move to adjourn. Councillor Wells, Councillor Desmarais. All those in favor? That's carried. Move right into the Monday, September 23rd council meeting. Introduction of addendum items. Madam Clerk's not here, but there are none. Confirmation of agenda. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Bruno. Any questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Any disclosures of interest? Adoption of minutes. We have the regular meeting of Council 26-19 held on September 9th, 2019, and the special meeting of Council 27-19 held on September 9th, 2019. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Kalaleff. Any questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Any items requiring separate discussion? Moved all the items. Somebody want to move those? Councillor Bodner, Councillor Wells. Any questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Proclamations. We have Poppy Week on October the 25th to November 11th, 2019. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Wells, Councillor Kalaleff. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. I'll do these in block. Minutes of the Port Colborne Transit Advisory Committee meeting of May 1st, 2019. Minutes of the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting of July 10th, 2019. Minutes of the Port Colborne Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting of June 25th, 2019. Minutes of the Port Colborne Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting of June 17th, 2019. And minutes of the Senior Advisory Council meeting of May 16th, 2019 and July 18th, 2019. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Bruno, Councillor Desmarais. Any questions on any of the minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Madam Clerk, bylaws.
Bylaws 6722-86-19 and bylaws 6723-87-19.
Mover and a seconder. Councillor Beauregard, Councillor Bodnar. Any questions on the bylaws? All those in favor? That's carried. We need a motion to go into closed session. The council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Minutes of the closed session portion of the following council meetings of August 26, 2019 and September 9th, 2019. Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report 2019-146 concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report 2019-140 concerning an appeal under the Planning Act to the local planning appeal tribunal related to 170 Welland Street pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And the last is Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report 2019-141 concerning an appeal under the Planning Act to the local planning appeal tribunal related to 607 Barrack Road pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Wells, Councillor Desmarais. Questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, we'll be moving into the back room for our in-camera meeting.